A big hello and welcome to this webinar on the most common public speaking fails and how to fix them. A live and interactive webinar with Simon Hall, our course lead for the online Compelling Communication Skills course. Thank you for joining today. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few things so you know how to participate in today's event. This webinar is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording in a follow-up email. You have all joined in listen-only mode. However, you do have the opportunity to submit questions by typing into the Q&A pane on the control panel at any time, and we will get round to answering these for you at the end of today's presentation. Please also be aware you will be called on frequently throughout today's presentation for your input via the chat box. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Simon to you.
Thank you, Phil. So who would like to know the most common public speaking fails and how to fix them? Well, I guess the answer is you, as you hear on this webinar. So quick word about me. I lead the Compelling Communication Skills course. I also run my own business communications agency, Creative Warehouse, here in Cambridge. I'm a writer with about 20 books published, as well as a bit of radio and TV stuff. And I was a BBC TV and radio news correspondent for 20 years. So first question for you, because we like interactive sessions, much more fun that way. First question for you, why did I begin the webinar the way I did, asking you who wants to know the most common public speaking fails, rather than the more traditional way of saying, hello, thank you for joining us, and telling you all about how magnificently wonderful I am? Why did I do that in the chat box? What was the point of that question? Why did I do that? Give me a thought in the chat box, and Phil will tell us what you're thinking. Phil, you really need to understand the difference between mute and not mute.
This is going to be a challenge today, you can tell. So the very first comment was simple engagement, and a lot of people reiterating that interaction, grabbing attention. So all, I believe, on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely right. Grabbing the attention. Why is that important? Modern attention spans are very short in this busy world of ours. There's no definitive figure, but they range from 10 to 40 seconds. Very short attention spans. And that tells you that you really have to work to engage, to grab, and to keep the attention in a presentation. So that's the reason I began that way, to engage you from the start. And that tells you the most important part of a presentation, and that is the start. So first of all, let's have a look at striking starts, because this is a very common fail, one of the most common. People start by saying, hello, thank you for your invitation. It's lovely to be here, blah, blah, blah. And I can almost feel some of the audience drifting away to look at their mobile phones. Starts are absolutely critical, because you might have the best presentation in the world, the most fascinating story, but it's lost if people have zoned out and they're not listening. So how do we do striking starts? Rather than me just tell you, we'll do it via a little game. I'm going to show you three very famous starts, very striking famous starts. I'm going to ask you if you can identify them, and then we will learn the lessons from them. So your first striking start is a literary one. Can anyone in the chat box recognize this striking start? It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. In the chat box, and Phil's ready to go, and he's not even on mute, which is even better. Anybody recognize the book and the author? It is a truth universally acknowledged.
A lot of people hitting this one on the nail, but a lot quicker than I did. Whilst we've got a couple of Charles Dickens in there, a lot of Jane Austen coming through, and specifically Pride and Prejudice. So we've got some novelists out there.
Absolutely, as befits a Cambridge audience. They're obviously highly intellectual. Great, absolutely right. So it's Jane Austen, her masterpiece, Pride and Prejudice. Why is it so famous? Why has it become so celebrated? So 3 points from that. First of all, when you read a beginning like that, single man in want of wife, you know immediately what sort of a story you're going to be reading. Is it crime? Is it horror? Is it sci-fi? No. You know immediately it's going to be a romance. So point number one, get stuck straight into your story. Don't waffle around with hellos and thank yous. Straight into your story. Point number two, and this I sometimes think of as the sort of dinner party type question. You go to a dinner party sometimes, you don't know everyone there, you follow the seating plan, and you know within the first few seconds of conversations with people around you, whether you're going to have a good night or a very, very long one. So applying that test, the dinner party test, when you read something like that, you've got someone who can spot a universal truth, and then sum it up with the beautiful elegance of the writer's art, you know immediately that Jane Austen is someone worth spending your precious time with. So point number 2 with starts, establish your authority. Make us look at you and think, wow, this person's got something to say. I'm going to listen. And point number 3, when you read a start like that, do you then think, oh, I'm going to chuck this book away? It's no good. I'm not interested. Or does it hook you into reading the second line, then the second paragraph, then the second page, and before you know it, you are down there in the story, happily reading along. So just a few words, but 3 important lessons straight into your story. Establish your authority, make us want to find out more. And see how those principles are replicated in a couple of other very famous striking starts. So we're going to switch gear here. We're going to go from high literature to pop music. See how your knowledge of pop is. So this is the next part of your quiz. Think 1960s classic pop. Which song starts this way? Hello, darkness, my old friend. See who gets that one then. Who knows their classic pop?
Yeah, we're very quickly getting the title, but can anybody remember? Up there we go. We've got a first correct answer. So Sound of Silence coming up very quickly, but Simon and Garfunkel quickly following along.
Great, excellent, spot on. So Paul Simon, Sound of Silence. Now, very different, I think you agree, from Jane Austen, but the 3 same principles, because Paul Simon is also a master of his art. Straight into his story. If you're not familiar, it's widely thought to have been about the assassination of President Kennedy. So the extinguishing of that beautiful voice of hope and light, gone. Straight into the darkness again. Hello, darkness, my old friend. We're back into the darkness. His authority just rings from that for me. Just 5 words, and yet he takes us straight into this story. He lures us into what he's got to tell us about. And of course, it makes us want to find out more. And the third one, the third part of your test, this is proper Cambridge now, so you must make sure you get this. This is very, very intellectual indeed. The start of a play, no less. 2 households, both alike in dignity in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. Boy, I like to channel my inner Amdram. Phil, what we got?
Yeah, we're getting answers pretty quick before you'd even finish the first line. I think it was a lot of Romeo and Juliet's coming through and Shakespeare being mentioned. So I think we're on the right track again.
Absolutely right. And then again, you see, very, very different from Jane Austen, very different from Paul Simon, but all masters of their art, all applying the same principles. Straight into the story, establish your authority, make us want to find out more. So that's how you do striking starts. And okay, I appreciate that's all a bit thoughtful, intellectual, Cambridge type stuff, but how do we apply it in real modern day life? I'll show you how I often start a pitch when I'm talking about compelling communication skills, the course that I run for Cambridge. I begin it this way. I can make you an outstanding public speaker, storyteller, and writer in just 6 weeks. So hopefully sets out the story. That's what we do. Hopefully also rings with my authority because we're really proud. That is how we help people and makes you want to find out more. And the final point about starts there in the blue when I introduce myself, you should introduce yourself. It's only polite after all. But notice you don't have to do so right at the start. You can hook the audience with a really strong bang of an opening line, pause and then introduce yourself. So that's the art of the striking start. And striking starts are not just any part of a presentation or a talk. They are the most important part. And a very common fail, people just mumble or mutter or blather their way through them. No, got to make sure you really hit the audience from the start, because here is something well worth remembering. Generally, if the start of a presentation goes well, the rest will go well too. You'll be full of confidence. The audience will be with you. It sets you off there. Okay, so if the start is the most important part of a presentation, I wonder in the chat box if you could tell me what is the second most important part? What does the research tell us is the second most important part? The other part that really makes an impact on people. Phil, let's see what they get with this one. I'm a tease, aren't I, with all my little tests?
Very much so. And I think people are getting it a lot quicker than I did. Very much looking at the end or the last impression, which is a nice way of putting it as well.
Absolutely, the ending. The ending is the second most important part. So let's have a look at excellent endings now. We won't do any theory, but there is something called the peak end rule, which tells us that in any experience, the peak and the end are the parts that people tend to remember. But it's common sense, isn't it? As the words you leave your audience with, they're most likely to be remembered. So endings. Start with the start, then work out your ending. They're your sort of bookends in a presentation. Get these right, and then the rest tends to follow much easier in the middle. So how do we do excellent endings? Well, again, I'm going to set you a little quiz. I'm going to show you the start and the end of a very famous speech in history. The start, just to check if it follows the principles we've discussed about striking stars. And the end, because endings, as we will see, are closely related to starts. So in the chat box, which very famous speech of the past begins with these words? 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created. One very famous speech of the past.
Yeah, the first person in has got it correct. Just seeing how many more. We're getting some individual names, but Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln, Lincoln. Yeah, we're getting quite a few of the correct ones coming through.
Right, absolutely right. So it's Abraham Lincoln and the iconic Gettysburg Address. So just ticking them off our list, those three principles. Is it straight into the story? Yes, the battle for freedom, for liberty. Does it establish his authority? Oh, yes. Rings with his passion and his principles. And it makes us want to find out more. Good, excellent. So ticks off the 3 points for striking stars. Now then, how does the Gettysburg Address end? And what can we learn from it? Ends like this. This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. So, what can we learn from that ending? Again, 3 points. First of all, Lincoln sums up his story. It's classic speech-making storytelling. You end where you began. So you set out your story at the start, you sum it up at the end, and there he sums up his story, back to freedom, back to liberty. So point number 1, sum up your story. Point number 2, and this is fun, this is where you get to be a bit of creative, because that's part of the fun of communication skills. Point number 2, he summed it up memorably. And here he uses the lovely rhythm of threes, the trick of threes, government of the people, by the people, for the people. And threes always settle well in the human mind. So sum up your story, try to do it memorably. And the final point is notice that he sums it up emphatically. There's no petering off. It's almost like a cymbal crash, shall not perish from the earth. And one common fail with endings is that people are not quite sure how to finish. And so they sort of tail away and I think, is that it? That's it. I think that's it. Or was it? No, there's something else. No, oh, that's it. Oh, what a shame. And it's a big fail because it mars an otherwise good presentation. So endings, sum up your story, do so memorably, do so emphatically. And again, applying these lessons of the past to today, if I'm pitching compelling communication skills, I may end like this. So for powerful public speaking, striking storytelling, and wonderful writing, see me for a chat later. Thank you. So summing up the story memorably with the threes, public speaking, storytelling, and writing, but also a flourish of alliteration, powerful public speaking, striking storytelling, etc. Hopefully memorably, hopefully emphatically, courtesy of the thank you. And the thank you in yellow, that is the easiest way to emphatically end a presentation. You don't need to say it's the end, that's it, now we'll have questions. You can just say thank you, we'll get it, we'll start clapping, we'll move on to the questions. And the other part there, the part in the blue, see me for a chat later, that's your call to action. Remember, every presentation is an opportunity. You might be asking for a job, you might be asking for backing for your idea. Whatever it is, don't forget to get the call to action in. Now, it traditionally comes at the end. Doesn't have to, there are no rules, but traditionally it does. Often fits well there, but make sure you get it in anyway. So that's endings, and that's the second most common fail in public speaking, tailing off, not ending emphatically, because ending is so important. So sum up your story, do so memorably, do so emphatically. Next, on to two of my favorite principles in public speaking, which should be in any situation your guiding lights to success. They also address two, again, of the most common fails. And these are fascinating because they can be surprising, because they go against so much of what you learn at school and college and in the world of work. I'm going to introduce the first with a picture. I need you to concentrate hard here. It's really important you understand what is being communicated, what is written on this screen. So focus on the screen. Make sure you understand what the presenter is pointing to here, and then we'll explore why. So I can feel you staring at that screen and puzzling out what it means. Is everybody absolutely clear what it means? Because we can't really proceed properly unless you are. Oh, 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 Phil, are they not clear? Are they not clear what that means?
I think there's a resounding agreement with that. Not clear, not really. No. Somebody might be getting close to what it's all about, but yeah, generally not clear.
I'm going to ask a question to see if anybody has a misspent youth like mine. Does anybody recognize the language on the board? There's a clue with what the guy's wearing and what he's got in his right hand.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple got it quite early on, and a few more jumping on board. So Klingon,
It
obviously the
is.
Star Trek theme.
It is. You don't get to do much Klingon at the University of Cambridge, so I take the opportunity. Why am I showing you Klingon? There is a serious point to this. As every planet or country has its language, like Klingon, so does every profession, every vocation in the world, whether it's sciences, engineering, whether it's law, whether it's medicine. They have their own specific ways of talking, their own shorthand. It's known as jargon. And one of the great fails of public speaking is you get so used to using that jargon in your profession, when you're talking to wider audiences, you forget that they won't necessarily understand it. That's why I show you the Klingon. It's important not to forget. This is the language of my profession, but these people out here will not understand it, so I need to translate it. And that brings us to my favorite acronym in communication, acronym word made up of initials, and it is this, KISS. Anybody in the chat box know what KISS stands for? And KISS is so important in communication and public speaking, because this will always guide you well. Phil, do we know what the KISS means?
We've got to keep it simple, Simon.
Yes.
That's a new take, but pretty close, and lots of keep it simples coming through. A few different imitations of the last S, but yeah.
Yeah. People often say to me, Phil, keep it simple, stupid, and I accept that completely. Yeah, keep it simple, keep it simple. And this is another great fail in presenting, because we kind of think we have to be complex and big words and all that sort of stuff, but no. For effective communication, effective presenting, you do not want big long words or science speak or business blather or jargon. You want plain and simple language. It's far more effective. And I'll give you 3 examples now of the importance of plain and simple language. The first one concerns Cockney rhyming slang. Again, don't get to do much of this at the University of Cambridge. It's why I love communication. It's such a fun trade. Cockney rhyming slang, if you're not familiar, it's a way of speaking which grew up in the East End of London, where you take plain and simple language, plain and simple words, and replace them with rhyming equivalents. So, classic English eccentricity. Absolutely fine to use this in the East End of London, because people will understand it. But if you're not in the East End, or someone has arrived and they're not from the East End, you have to use plain and simple language. You have to translate the language you're used to of your area or your profession into plain and simple terms. So one of my favorite challenges for you in the chat box, can you translate this lovely example of Cockney rhyming slang? Okay, my old china plate, I've come into some bees and honey. So let's go to the rub-a-dub. All right, so break it down for me. First of all, china plate, then bees and honey, then rub-a-dub. What does that sentence in pure Cockney rhyming slang mean in plain and simple language? I'd love to see if they get this right, Phil. This is always such fun.
Yeah, we're getting some pretty spot on answers pretty quickly. just going through to see if there's any others that have come up with any inclination to yourself, Simon. So Make Money Pub is coming through quite often. Some with the full sentences. I'm just picking out those copywriting slang alternatives. But yes, yeah,
absolutely spot on. Smart group. Okay, absolutely right. Yeah, well done, well done. So the answer is, okay, my old mate, I've come into some money, so let's go to the pub. China plate, mate, bees and honey, money, rub-a-dub pub. Well done, team. You got it. Absolutely. So the point being, Cockney rhyming slang, it's a form of jargon. It's a specific way of speaking for an area or a profession. Fine there, but if you're talking to a wider audience or people who are not familiar with it, you have to translate. That's the importance of plain and simple language. Now, the next one, I'm going to take a risk and hope there aren't too many managers on the call. If you're a manager, you might want to look away or block up your ears, because this next one is an example of management speak. So see if you can translate in the chat box this wonderful example of management speak. Don't tell anyone at the BBC, because I might have stolen it from a BBC meeting. I want a deep dive to self-source us a magic bullet, which is ultra actionable. Classic. So break it down. Deep dive, self-source, magic bullet, ultra actionable. Classic management speak. Phil, we never speak like this. We never hear this in Cambridge meetings, do we?
not quite that way. No.
You're so discreet and diplomatic. I love it. So what's the translation into plain and simple language of this wonderful jargon?
Yeah, just looking through. So some people trying to translate it bit by bit and trying to work out which each part's it. Magic bullet, a solution. Yeah. Take a look to find something we have which quickly solves the problem. Can we work out a solution? Tell me what to do.
That's what I often ask. Great. Yeah, well done. Yeah. I saw something flash past that said Ofsted. Let's gloss over that, shall we? Zip.com. Okay, well done. I think between you, you've got it. Well done. So translation is, I'd like us to think hard to create an effective and practical solution. So deep dive, think hard, think carefully. Self-source. I love self-source. You don't go home at night into the kitchen and self-source a meal, do you? No, you make it. Think hard to create or make. Magic bullet, effective and practical solution. Classic management speak. So you see the importance of translating it so everyone can understand, but also if anybody is a manager or they're going to become a manager, don't forget plain and simple language. Not only does it connect much better, it doesn't undermine your credibility because it doesn't make you look like a wally, just between us. All right. So the final one, if we have any scientists on the call, you might enjoy this one. This is a classic Cambridge problem. This was a couple of Cambridge PhDs, maths PhDs, so hyper intelligent people, and they had come up with something which they thought would make a really interesting business. They thought people would want it, and I agreed. Problem was, they weren't getting any customers the way they were explaining it. So they asked me why. Why did I think they weren't doing so well? This was what they sent me to explain what they did. Your challenge in the chat box, and this is the gold award. Can you translate what they actually do? Utilizing Brownian motion models, non-regime switching data universes, multiple quantitative data source complex clustering and characterization algorithms, we project equities shifts. Mazer got through that one all right. So in plain and simple language, to illustrate the importance of translating from science speak in this case, which is of course one form of jargon, how did I translate that? What does the business do?
Yeah, some picking up similar to myself. I found this one challenging.
Challenging. So did I. The amount of Googling I had to do to understand what it was that they did.
So a lot of stocks and markets coming in, investment advice, invest assets differently, using various models to predict. Yeah, lots that are kind of on the right track, but obviously challenging to get the full.
Yeah, wasn't it just? So this is how I translated it. We use advanced maths to forecast the stock markets. So I sent that back to them and they said to me, well, that's what we said. So, well, that's kind of what you said. But there's a happy ending to this story. That's how they now explain what they do, and they've got plenty of customers. So, a lovely example of the importance of plain and simple language. A very common fail in public speaking. We get wrapped up in our own world, we speak the jargon of that world, and we've been programmed to think it's really good communication to use big long words and lots of complex concepts. It's not. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, Simon. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, so plain and simple language. Now, the next concept is strongly linked to keeping it simple, and this is my second favorite concept in public speaking and communication. And again, this tends to go against the expectations of school and college and the world of work, because if you want to make a big impression with something which is important to you, as it is with a presentation, then the instinct, of course, is to talk and talk and talk and talk some more. Say as much as you possibly can about your subject. Go on and on and on and on and on. That's what we expect, isn't it? If you keep talking about it, you'll make a big impression. Well, absolutely not. No, not at all. Have you heard of the concept of less is more? Less is more is a wonderful concept because it means you can make more impact for less work. And what's not to like about that? Less is more relies on the fact that the human brain, just like a computer, has a certain amount of register. It can only hold a certain amount of information. So if you overwhelm it, it can't keep it all in. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the power and the importance of less is more. First one, warning, classic Cambridge eccentric teaching exercise will now follow. So first example, a Simon Silly example. I have here a load of ping pong balls. Now, imagine I asked you to catch these ping pong balls. Ready? Catch. You didn't catch them. Why didn't you catch them? Because I threw a whole load at you. You couldn't hold on to the ball. You were overwhelmed. It's exactly the same with information. You chuck loads of information at someone, they can't hold on to it all. Now, repeat the experiment, but slightly differently. Now I'm going to throw the balls at you like one. Less of them, spaced out, more gently and regularly, and wow, you catch all of them. That's less is more. Less is more. So that's the Simon Silly way of doing it. Sorry about that. But there is a much more profound example, far, far more profound. Identify this great statesman of the past for me in the chat box. Someone we've heard from already, someone who can teach us so much about public speaking and presentations. So much. Who's that? Who is that?
Yeah, very, very quickly, everybody's on it. So Abraham Lincoln, Abe,
Right.
we're getting all the
Abe, yeah, dear old Abe. Yeah, okay. So that's Abraham Lincoln giving the Gettysburg Address. Now, the Gettysburg Address is a famous, iconic, celebrated speech. Even now, 160 odd years on, we still talk about it. It is absolutely celebrated. Because it is so famous and so celebrated, people tend to assume the Gettysburg Address went on for a long time. What do you think is the length of the Gettysburg Address? What do you think is the minimum that Lincoln could have spoken for to make such an impression that his words echoed not just down the years, but down the decades and to us today? How long do you think the Gettysburg Address was? What is the minimum Lincoln could have spoken for to make such an impression? Give us an idea in the chat box. What do you think it might be?
Yeah, it's pretty varied coming through. The first answer came in was 15 minutes. We've got 2 minutes, 5 minutes. We've got 15 seconds. It's pretty varied, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of go towards sort of like 10 or 15 minutes when I first thought about this. So prepare yourself for a surprise. The Gettysburg Address lasted for 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. And I've seen a couple of people in chat got it, and well done. Yeah, the Gettysburg Address was only 2 minutes long, just 270 words in the Gettysburg Address, half a page of A4, and yet it went down in history. Why? Not because of the word count, but because of how much Lincoln made the words count. I'm not going to set you any homework here, but it's well worth looking up the address. You've seen the start and the end, see what he says in the middle, and then he stops. The power of less is more. 2 minutes, and it goes down in history. And the guy before Lincoln that day, by the way, spoke for 2 hours and no one remembers his name. The power of less is more. So less is more. And incidentally, less is more also works with images, visuals, slides, and data. So here is a kid's picture, and here is an artwork from Mark Rothko. Now, the kid's picture is that stage where the youngster's just got the hang of color and detail, and there's a lot going on. The Rothko is a very different approach. Less is more. If I put the kid's picture onto eBay, I would probably get a mocking bid of about 5 pence. Okay, people, how generous are you feeling on this lovely Sunshine Friday? How much would you give me for the Rothko? Give me a bid for the Rothko. How much do you think the Rothko sold for at auction? Give me a bid for the Rothko. See who's an art critic or who is feeling flush today. How much you give me for the Rothko?
Somebody with a similar taste to myself. First answer was I prefer the kids' picture. So a varying amount, we've got 5p, 1.2 million, 44 million, 25 million, 500,000.
That's not bad. I still think they're being a bit mean. So the answer is the Rothko went for $186 million. $186 million. So less is more in words, in images, in life. Less is more. And that's another great fail of public speaking and presentations. People think they need to go on and on and on and on and on, but actually you don't. Say what you need to say and stop. Say what you need and stop. And I'll ask you this, how many times have you come out of a series of presentations or talks saying, oh, I wish they went on longer, whereas the reverse is far more often the case. So less is more and keep it simple. They go hand in hand. Because if you're still not convinced by less is more and KISS, keep it simple, and I appreciate sometimes it's a lot to get your head around, let's now have a look at lesson number 1. Lesson number 1 for KISS and less is more. See if you can get this. This is quite a challenge. So this is a world-beating business. It has cornered more than 90% of the market in its field. It is so powerful in our lives, its name has become a verb. You will probably use it many times a day without ever noticing or thinking about the brilliance of keeping it simple and less is more in the way that you interact with it. What is it?
Yeah, impressive. I didn't get this one, but the first number of answers all coming through, all hitting the nail on the head with Google. Yeah,
absolutely spot on. Well done. Google it is. It is absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. And just think for a second, all the brilliant technology behind that. And what do they ask you to do? Type into the box and hit return, and that's it. And okay, at the top there's a nod to more advanced functions, but hardly anyone uses them. Type in the box, hit return, jobs are good. The power of less is more and simplicity. And just to build on that, if you're still not quite convinced, there is another enormous business in modern life. We hadn't even heard of it 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, really. Now it's part of our everyday conversation. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger in our lives. And for part of their success, they have effectively ripped off the Google interface, the way of communicating with the public. It's worth billions upon billions. What is it? Here's your challenge. They have effectively ripped off the Google way of doing things. What is it?
Yes, so I'm broadly getting it right with AI and artificial intelligence, a lot hitting the nail on the head with ChatGPT.
Yeah, absolutely right. ChatGPT. And again, look at that. All the brilliant technology behind that. Ask what you want in the box, hit return, and that's it. That's it. And effectively, they have ripped off the Google plan because they've learned from Google. And that's the power of KISS. KISS and less is more. Right, so on to the final one of our common fails. And we've alluded to this with the Rothko and the kid's picture. And this is about slides, visuals and slides. Again, many good presentations are marred by slides which are frankly impenetrable, utterly baffling. So we're going to introduce how to do slides and visuals with one of my games. And the game is good slide, bad slide. I'm going to show you a couple of slides. You have a look at them, then tell me in the chat box whether they are good slides or bad slides, and we'll draw the lessons from them. And I'll give you a hint here. Remember, less is more and simplicity. Less is more and simplicity do not just work with words, they work as much or perhaps more with slides, visuals, data. And also with this, don't worry about images or typeface or graphics. Just think about the content of the slide, if it will work well for a presentation. And then I will reveal the critical rule of slides for you. So, first one, imagine if I was talking to you about how to start a presentation. In the chat box, good slide or bad?
We're getting quite a mixture coming through. Yeah, every other one a bad or a good. Pretty good. Good-ish. No message, bad.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, because slides
interesting.
can be a challenge for people as well. Yeah, I'm hoping they're not saying bad because it's the back of me there, which is often thought of as my best side. Yeah, so I would say that's actually a good slide. And the reason I think that's a good slide is because it follows the principles of less is more and keeping it simple. And I'll go to the next slide now just to show you why that is so important. So for me, that's a good slide because it's simple. It's very, very stark. There's nothing else to do apart from see. We're going to be talking about how to start a presentation, and then I can talk around it. So your next challenge, and this is a contrast. If I was talking to you about well-being, imagine well-being, good slide or bad for this one? What do you think? Good slide or bad?
Bad, super bad, very bad. Oh, well, it's picking up some pace now.
Yeah, it is indeed bad. But yet, how often do you see this when someone slams a wall of text up onto a slide and then reads from it? That is not a pleasant experience for you, is it? Okay, so it is a bad slide. But fundamentally, why is it a bad slide? This is sometimes known as hiding behind your slides. It shows you don't have the authority or the confidence to come out and engage with the audience directly, which is not good. Also, it's a little bit sloppy with different typeface and all that sort of stuff. But here is the critical point. Critical point. If you put up a slide like that and then start talking, the audience begin reading the slide. And so they're half reading the slide and they're half listening to you, and neither of them are really working. So the important point to remember with slides, this is absolutely critical. The audience is either listening to you or they're reading the slide, but they're not doing both. So just think about that for a second. Audience either listening to you or reading slide, but not both. And that's why the principles of less is more and KISS underlie how to do slides properly. Audience listening to you or reading slide, but not both. And that leads us to reducing the amount of information on the slide to the bare possible minimum. So if I was talking to you about well-being and I was following my principles and I wanted to do a slide which worked much better, I might do it like this. Let me now talk to you about well-being. So, well-being. There are 4 areas I particularly want to focus on here because they're all really important. Support network, your family and friends can help you if you're feeling low. Getting some exercise, not always easy if you're glum, but get out, it makes you feel better. Nature, breathe the air, listen to the bird song, always lifts your spirits. And upskilling, learning a new skill, that can really help you feel worthwhile. All those areas can support your well-being. So see the difference, the compare and contrast. With this one, you've got nowhere else to go. You know you're going to be hearing about well-being, and I talk you through the points. You're listening to me. Remember, slides are there to support your message. You're not relying on them. You're not trying to let them hold you up like a prop. The audience is either reading the slide or listening to you, but not both. And here's a guideline which I often use. It's not absolute, but it's worth bearing in mind. You shouldn't have more on your slides than you would have on a t-shirt. And I know that's quite a shock sometimes. No more than on a t-shirt. It's not absolute, but it's not a bad guide. So if you start putting more on a slide than you would see on a t-shirt, you might need to rethink it. So compare and contrast how that slide works with our horror slide, which I hope we will never have to see again. There we go. So that's the power of less is more. So those are your 5 fundamental fails. in public speaking and presentation, starts and ends, so important. Keep it simple, less is more. And the slides, apply those principles to slides. Remember, audience listening to your reading slide, but not both. Now, we'll have a Q&A in a while, but first, briefly, here is Phil with the information you are now no doubt clamoring for, aren't you? How to find out more about the course and maybe even sign up for compelling communication skills. Phil.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, a big thank you, Simon. That was really great. And for all of you, that was a taster of some of the content you could expect to be covered in the course Simon leads for the University of Cambridge Online, compelling communication skills, which I'm sure you've heard mentioned a few times already. Just a quick reminder before we get into a little bit more, please do feel free to add any questions that you have about the content of Simon's presentation or about the course itself in the Q&A box, and we'll get around to answering them live just before the end of the webinar. So yeah, now I'm going to speak just a little bit more about what's covered in the course, and hopefully that will be of interest and just as interesting as Simon so far. But so yeah, the compelling communication skills course from Cambridge Advanced Online, it's a 6-week tutor-guided program designed to help professionals master the art of impactful communication. Through a blend of public speaking, writing, and storytelling, participants will learn to craft clear, persuasive messages and deliver them with confidence. The course emphasizes clarity, simplicity, emotional resonance, and the power of storytelling, while also developing body language and presentation skills. The course does have a broad appeal and can benefit senior leaders who need to communicate their vision and ideas effectively, build stronger connections with their teams and motivate performance through persuasive storytelling and impactful presentations, mid-level professionals and managers who want to inspire, motivate, and engage their teams and achieve their professional goals, and really to any professional who wants to craft clear, concise, and compelling messages for colleagues, clients, or customers to deliver them confidently and with impact and to advance their own careers. So the University of Cambridge Online, what makes us different? Well, the University of Cambridge Online stands out by offering courses developed and led by Cambridge academics specifically. Quality assured by senior professors, learners benefit from weekly live interactive webinars, personalized tutor support with low student-to-tutor ratios, and a world-class learning platform. Upon successful completion, participants will receive a University of Cambridge Online certificate. With a global learner base, you also get an opportunity to connect with professionals from over 60 countries, and we have a 97% satisfaction rate. The program delivers a highly engaging and prestigious online learning experience. Now, quickly back to Simon, just for an insight into the impact that the course has had.
I need to remember to unmute myself. I was just doing that to make you feel better, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're delighted that our work has been recognised. We got a lovely award last year when I dressed up in my penguin suit and felt slightly odd about it, but it was great. And it was a gold award at the Learning Technologies, known as the Oscars of the online education world, which we were rather pleased about. But most importantly to us is the learner feedback, the feedback we get from the people who come on the course. I'm just going to share some of my favourite quotes with you now because, frankly, they make me feel good. So one of them: these exceptional materials are not just ordinary, boring online video recordings, but a combination of various learning methods, much like playing a game. You can see the dedication and high quality from the teaching team. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. We love that. A new aha moment every week. Absolutely love that as well, because we find that people learn so much, which is so useful for them. And that's just a few words. Great example of keeping it simple and less is more, but still meaningful. It's been so friendly, supportive, and humorous throughout. I've enjoyed every part immensely. And that's really important to us. We do not preach to you. We don't want you to sit there thinking, oh, I'm bored. It's like being back in the classroom. Everything we do, as you probably had a sense from this webinar, is engaging, it's interactive. And we find that you learn best by enjoying yourself and doing what we're working on. So it's very engaging, very interactive. And we try and make it fun as well. There are, I think, Phil, we would say, split opinions on my sense of humour, but most people seem to tolerate it. Okay. And a favourite quotation there: it didn't even feel like virtual training. Absolutely delighted by that, because we worked really, really hard to bring it alive. So just a bit of a sense of our feedback. Phil, you've got something else to tell us about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, now you have all this great information and have a little bit of a taste of what are the next steps. Well, personally, I'd love to connect with anybody who does have any further questions or wants to dive deeper into the contents of the Compelling Communication Skills course. Please do visit our website where you can find more information about the course. download the brochure or arrange a call with me or one of the team. The link will also be shared in a follow-up email after the webinar, but if you do want to take it down now, please do so. It does only take a few moments to schedule, and calls are usually under 15 minutes to cover everything that we need to. You can also contact me via email. My email you'll find on the screen, but also you'll find a way to contact us via the website if you do find yourself there as well. The course enrollment, if you do wish to join the course, can be done right online, where you can pay by card or request a quotation. Our next course is due to start on the 21st of July with an enrollment deadline of the 14th of July, which is fast approaching. But we do have future courses, with another one starting this year on the 13th of October. So now, yeah, if you haven't already, I can see we've got a few in there to try and get through in the next 15 minutes. Do leave your questions in the Q&A pane, and we will start to have a look through and work through some of them now. We will start at the top. First question that came in. So Simon, probably best asked to you this one. I have often been invited as a keynote speaker in public speaking. I sometimes forget the key points I have to deliver on stage. Any suggestion to do when mind gets blank or conditioned in front of the audience to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, keep it simple and less is more. Really boil down what you want to say and make sure that that's all you do say. And that way you will be much clearer on what you're saying. And on top of that, the audience will take much more away. I sometimes say when I'm teaching this, and it's hard to get across because it's so counterintuitive, but the more you tell people, the more they will forget. The less you tell them, the more they will remember. So keep it simple, less is more. And one little tip for you as well, if you do sometimes just find yourself getting a little bit lost, and it happens to all of us, believe me, take a prop with you onto stage, glass of water, coffee, whatever it is you want to do. It looks perfectly natural because everyone needs to hydrate and drink while they're talking. But if you fear you're about to go blank or you're not quite sure where you go next, just take a sip. It gives you 4 or 5 seconds to refocus. It looks perfectly natural to the audience. It doesn't feel like an awkward pause. And the funny thing I found about this, and I've used this with many people I've worked with, if you have it there and you know it's there to help you, you don't need it. That's a psychological safety net. So keep it simple, less is more, but also have your friend there just to give you a pause if you need to, so you can reset your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think very well said. And yeah, definitely back to some of the points covered today. So really relevant. The next one, perhaps picking up on a point earlier, Simon mentioned the importance of establishing authority when delivering a striking start. Could we take a moment to unpack what that really means? Specifically, how can we communicate authority to an audience in a way that feels authentic and natural?
Oh, yeah, great question. So there is so much to stars. I mean, there's a whole PhD thesis in them. And I'm really, really interested in stars. So the first thing, of course, is the content. And we've gone through the content. You've got to tell them what you're going to be talking to them about. You've got to make it look like you know what you're talking about. And then you've got to make them want to find out more. But of course, there is more to it than that. So the body language, we haven't covered that today. We do in the course. The body language comes into it. Where are you going to stand on this stage? For example, if I have a lectern offered to me, I will shove it to the side. I will never use the lectern apart from occasionally to lean on. I will want to stand absolutely center stage in front of the lectern, because I found that to be a barrier to communication. You project much more authority if you come out and speak from behind it. So body language is really important. And also here's another trick for you, which seems to convey authority instinctively. Now, we talked about striking starts. But actually, the practice of how to do a striking start, I wouldn't just go into saying, do you want to be a fantastic public speaker? I would wait for the room to quiet. I would say, hello, morning. And they would get it and they would quieten down. And I would then hold them for 3 or 4 seconds, letting them quiet, but just looking around, building the anticipation. Saying, so who wants to learn how to be an outstanding public speaker, storyteller, and writer? And that pause is another very, very effective way of conveying authority. And if you ever look at the great public speakers, all of them, none of them rush, all of them take it easy, leave pauses. So pauses is another way of doing it. So there's a lot to that question, but content and your character, your sense of authority are the most critical elements.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, really nice. A really good one here, and perhaps quite relevant to the course as well in terms of how quickly you can learn something. But can you go from being a very bad communicator to a great one in a shorter amount of time? I feel some people are naturally good, and I can never become as good as them.
Yeah, and that's a question we have a lot. And the honest answer is it depends on you, and it depends on the work you're willing to put in. I can tell you that in the course, we will give you everything you need to be an outstanding communicator, from the foundations in module 1, moving through to writing skills, to storytelling, and to public speaking. And we do more on public speaking because it's the one area that most people are worried about. But everything we do, foundations wise and into writing and storytelling, they all feed into public speaking. Because in communication, happily enough, the principles tend to apply across everything you're doing. So whether it's writing, storytelling, or public speaking, the same principles, the importance of the start, the importance of the end, keeping it simple, less is more, they still apply. So we can give you everything. And I always say this to people who come on the course, we can only take you so far. I can give you, but you have to take and use. So it is about practice. It is about putting it into action. But I can also tell you, if you're willing to do that, it works. We had a wonderful learner last year called Inga. And Inga came on the course because she was fairly senior, but she was really, really worried about public speaking. She was really worried about it. So we took her through it. We gave her some help as well, some individual tuition, which we do with the tutor team. And I was delighted to get a message from her last year that she'd been invited to New York to speak at a women's Women in Leadership Summit in New York. And she's from Lithuania as well. So it's an amazing journey for her. And she did it, and she did it so well, and she was so proud. And I don't want to sound like your dad, but I was really, really proud as well. So yeah, we can do it, but you have to do it with us. It's a partnership. It's not just us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well put, I think. And yeah, nice to bring up some good examples. There's a question, and it might cover a few different of the questions here. So trying to sum up and make the most of the time that we have, but it's specifically relating to slides, and this perhaps sums it up quite well. It's a challenge with stakeholders who want the slides to be the leave behind piece and to use the slide as speaker notes. How do you effectively balance that sort of simple message, especially in the technical aspect as well, to be able to kind of leave those slides behind for others, but not make it too messy and over the top?
Yeah, I have a really sad story for you here, and that is you're going to have to do some extra work, because slide decks were, of course, invented for presentations, but they have become adapted for use as effectively a report. So people pass them around companies saying, here's my slide deck, it's got all you need to know in it. If you try and use a slide deck for both a report and a presentation, it will fail because the demands of each are very, very different. So you will have to do a personalized version specifically for a presentation where you use less is more. Now you can, if you're talking to a technical audience, you can use more data and you can use more intricate, whatever it is you need to talk about there. So long as you know that they understand it, remember the importance of adjusting for the audience. But if you are going to try and use a slide deck as a report, then I don't particularly like it. If you want to write a report, write a report. But if it's your company or organization's policy, then that should be separate from what you do as a presentation. And of course, in the presentation, you then say, I've given you the overview, the details that you need. There's much more in this slide deck, and I'll send it out to you. And on top of that, you've got the Q&A as well. And one final tip on that, I tend to do the presentation as the overarching view. And if I know there will be more technical questions, we put them below the black line, the slides there. So somebody asks, tell me a bit more about this. Okay, let me just show you this slide where I can show you what we did on this occasion. So having a strategy in mind, just dividing it up, saying here's the presentation, here's potentially the Q&A, what we might ask, and here is a slide deck, which we will use as a report. So it does mean more work, but it does also mean much, much more effective.
Still a lot of questions. So what we'll try and do is try and sum up some of the ones that seem to be repeated a little bit more, because I appreciate this may be the last question. We'll see how we get through. But one around nerves, and specifically, what happens if you get nervous during a speech? How do you manage your nerves? How do you prepare to even start the speech? How do we tackle that?
Yeah, and it's one of the most common questions. And don't worry, you're not alone. And don't think me trying to flam you here, but I get nervous before talks as well. And Phil and I were having a little joke beforehand. He said, you don't get nervous. I said, I do. I really do. I had to go for a half-hour run this morning to calm myself down and get some air in me. So nerves are natural. Nerves are to be welcomed, because if you don't have nerves, the moment does not matter and you're not full of energy. They're there to give you energy and spark to perform. So embrace the nerves, but channel them. So beforehand, I have various tricks. I went out for a run this morning. I tend to, when I'm working with people consulting on big presentations, we do a bit of warm up. We do some voice warm up stuff, which can be fun as well. You can do some of the things like la 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 with your voice. And the fun about that is not only do they get your voice ready, but they also make you smile, which really helps. And then when you start a presentation, there are certain tricks you can use just to breathe, to get the air in you. That all helps as well. Slowing down that we've discussed and pausing helps because that gives you more space, more presence. And striking starts help you as well. I've noticed many, many times that people I've worked with who have been nervous, if we make sure we've got the start completely nailed, they see immediately, everyone goes, oh, this is going to be good. It fills them with confidence and it helps them through. So there's lots and lots and lots of tricks you can use with nerves. And the drinking, having a prop with you as well, that also helps. But do not worry that you get nervous. Pretty much everyone, I think, everyone who's honest with you does. It's just a case of finding your way to channel those nerves.
Yeah, absolutely. Just scrolling through, I know that there are a few specific questions around the course, which we might not get time to answer specifically. There are some around assignments. Yes, there are assignments. Everything that is designed within the learning design element of the course is around putting into practice what you're covering. So within the course, there will be a small written element around halfway through, and at the end of the course, we'll get you to record a presentation. Everybody there looking also about time commitments. Generally 6 to 8 hours per week is what we say. It is flexible. There are some interactive elements to each part of the course. What I would encourage you to do is, if you have time today, just to pop over to the course page via the link provided, or it'll come in a follow-up email as well, just to have a look. There's some really good information there that helps to break it down. But also do reach out and be happy to connect and kind of explore that a little bit more with you. So yeah, I'm really sorry if we haven't had time to answer your questions today. We will endeavour to get back to you on any questions or topics that we haven't been able to address. If you do send that in via email or connecting with me. As a reminder, there will also be a short survey when you exit the webinar today, which will give you the opportunity to ask those questions if you haven't already. Please do also take a couple of moments to provide us with some feedback. It's always great to hear. And look out for that follow-up email later next week, in which we'll share the recording of the webinar and some further useful links that have been mentioned today. Thank you all so much for attending. We've really enjoyed ourselves. Hope you have as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hope to see you on the course.